So throughout the conference, if you arrived yesterday and attend the EBC, or you arrived this morning, you hear a lot about this next generation of Amazon SageMaker, unification of data and AI workload, and so on. And then if you attend the second session of the day, you hear from Carlos and Manan talking about unify your data storage with SageMaker Lakehouse. So in the sessions, myself, Lydia, Analytics Solution Architect at AWS, and my colleague, Sandipan Bhaumik, Principal Specialist Analytics Solution Architect at AWS. We're going to talk about how you actually interact with that Amazon SageMaker now, how it's unified your experience regardless of whatever your data persona would be. So what we have for the next 40 minutes-ish, we're going to start to make sure everyone has the same understanding when we talk about SageMaker Unified Studio. Because there is SageMaker Lakehouse, Unified Studio, Next-Gen SageMaker. What is that? What does the studio means for all of you in your organization? Once we have on the same page, we're going to go a little bit more technical to understand the core components of Unified Studio. And then I'm going to touch just briefly about data processing within SageMaker Unified Studio. And then I will stop talking. I will hand over to Sandy later on. So he will bring everything that I talk about to life within the demo. And then if you stay until the end, we will share resources so you can learn more and then continue learning at your own pace. So stay until the end. We'll share with you a bunch of resources for you to get started. So let's get started. Just a recap. Throughout the whole day, we'll talk about the next generation of Amazon SageMaker. Like Rick say, or Mana and Carlos already mentioned, is the unification for your data and AI workload together with the unified data access. And we have 3 layers, 3 main areas. From the bottom to the top, we have the Lakehouse, unified your data storage. Going to the middle one, we have unified the data catalog for both data and AI. So you have a centralized governance for both data and AI. And then on the top, we unified the experience for different data persona. It captures data workload from data processing, SQL analytics, or from AI workload, capture the model development, or even Gen AI development. And looking ahead, we're also going to capture the search, streaming, and also business intelligence within the Unified Studio experience. So what does that mean for you, for your organizations? It means now you can use your data or AI tool that usually you use you have to jump between different tools. You're going to use it in one single place, one single environment. So if you think about your organization now, if you have data scientists, data engineer, data analyst, business analyst, you name it, all the data persona. Now, everyone can work in the same tool, but doing whatever they need to do with the data. It means you can collaborate quickly or easily. So whatever you're trying to develop with data and AI, it can be accelerated by collaboration in one single tool. But what happens if you have smaller team, one person doing everything? It's happened too, right? Some organizations have one person doing data engineering, data scientist. It's also for you. Because now, instead of you have to jump from Jupyter Notebook or spin up like SQL clients in a different place, now everything is in there. So you have the same interface for different workload. So either you have a massive team or you are a one-man team, SageMaker Unified Studio is built for you to collaborate, but the point is to accelerate whatever journey that you have to build a data and AI product. Okay, now we go a little bit more technical. I'm trying my best to explain in an interesting way. So SageMaker Unified Studio have a handful of components. If you're familiar with data zones, some of them like overlap. So we're going to go through one by one. So the first part is domain portal, domain unit, and so on. Domain, in a simplistic way, is a central hub for anything you want to do in Amazon SageMaker. So if you want to use the next generation of Amazon SageMaker, you will go through Unified Studio. To have Unified Studio, you need to have a domain. So if you think about your organization, commonly, one organization will have one single domain. Okay, that's aligned with your organization policy, governance, and so on. And then you have domain portal. one domain will map to one single domain portal. Domain portal is the same thing like web portal. So if you want to access this Unified Studio, you don't have to go through the AWS console. You can go to the web page, or we call it domain portal, and everyone going to the same domain portal. Data scientist, data engineer, data analyst, the same thing. It's the place that you log in into Unified Studio. And then domain unit, in simplistic way, is like a subdomain. It's under the domain, but you can have multiple domain units. Commonly, if you want to implement for your organizations, you have to think about aligning this domain unit with line of business. For example, you have finance, you have sales, marketing. Each of them have one domain unit each. So it's isolated the resources that you allocate for each of domain unit. And then let's move on to blueprints. Blueprints, if you want to think about blueprints, is tied to your infrastructure. It means it's automate the creation of your infrastructure. Like in the past, if you want to have SQL engine, maybe you have to spin a structured cluster yourself and so on. But this one is automate all those processes. Bear with me, I'm going to go through like example that bring it to life what is exactly blueprints means, and then the other component as well. Move on to project profiles. Project profiles in simplistic way is pre-packaged blueprint. So it's a template for you to create a project later on. So blueprints is like for data infrastructure. In project profiles, you know what you want to use. For example, you want to use Athena and Glue. So in project profile, you package those blueprints. So when you create a project, you just pick that project profiles instead of, okay, think about like spin up Athena, spin up Glue in a different way. You have one bundle to create a project. And project itself, it's where you're going to do the work, like a workspace. Some people call it sandbox and all those things. So where your user will collaborate within the project, you have your data infrastructure or data tools or data services available within that project. You have the team data access from that project as well, and that is project. And you build project based on the project profile or template that you choose. So the relation blueprint, project profiles, and project and environments. So blueprint, remember, is like CloudFormation, CDK. It's to build your infrastructure. And typically, domain admin will create the blueprints. If you think about your organization, domain admin commonly is those who look after infrastructure. And you create it from AWS console. Okay? That's where you create like your data infrastructure. And then you go to like project profiles. Remember, it's a bunch of blueprint or it's a single blueprint for create something. But this is, you pick the blueprints that you want based on what project you want, what potential project that you want to do. For example, if you project about data analysis, you might want to have, I don't know, EMR for data processing, and then Athena for query. So you have blueprints that combine Athena and EMR as your project template or project profiles. So whoever data analysts that need that particular project, they can just use that template. They don't need to bother about like what tools I have to use, because everything is already in there. And then project profiles also created by domain admin, made it available within their SageMaker Unified Studio. And then the last one is projects. Projects is the one that the data persona will create when you're going into Unified Studio. So the data persona will have a goal that they want to achieve within the project. And then you create project, but now you have the choice, right? You have the template. You don't have to think about what tools you want to use. You can choose from different project profiles that made available by your domain admin. And environment in simplistic way, again, is like, I would say it's a tools, like, for example, if a tools for you to analyze data, you need Athena or Redshift, that's one of the tools. But it's called environment because it's not just spinning up the Athena cluster or Redshift cluster, but it's including those service role and all the things around it. That's what you call environment. Okay, zoom it slightly a little bit more into the project. So within the project, when you create a project, you put together your data persona, your data infrastructure or data engine, various programming language, and also data access. Remember, the data is sit in your data lake or your data warehouse, in this case, like S3 or Amazon Redshift. But the data access you can make available from the catalog. So you can make the data available in the catalog, so you can get the access of data. Data is still stored in whatever the physical storage that you have, and you can work collaboratively within a project. And then if we zoom out slightly a little bit, there will be multiple projects outside, and then you can make your data available for other projects to access it by publishing it in the catalog. If you don't want to make data available for other projects, you cannot publish it. You have the choice. It doesn't mean like your data have to be all published within the SageMaker catalog. When you publish in the catalog, it is not the content of the data available. It's information about the data available. Does that make sense? OK. I hope that makes sense. We move on to the next topic, data processing. I put this one briefly because I think it's important to know how data processing in SageMaker Unified Studio, because whatever you do with the data processing will always be there. Either you clean up the data, ingest the data, ETL, it's always there. OK, so what I'm trying to say in data processing in SageMaker Unified Studio, so you can use our purpose-built tool. Like in the past or previously, you want to use specific tools for specific jobs so you can have the best price performance for the specific job. You can still get it in SageMaker Unified Studio. But now it's even more simple for you because all of them is from one single UI or one single entry point. You can pick and choose which one makes sense for you. Either EMR, either AWS Glue or Redshift, Athena, you name it. And then on top of that, this is something that's being touched by Manan and Carlos as well, the zero ETL component within data processing. And what does that mean for you? So when you build a pipeline, typically you have to have the ingestion pipeline, grab the data somewhere, put it somewhere, and maybe clean up the data, business logic in the middle. But now you can just focus the one in the middle, business logic, clean up data, the grabbing data from somewhere and put data to somewhere else. We taking care of all the heavy lifting of that, mostly from databases, but also from the SaaS applications. So if you later on, if you look at Explore Unified Studio, data processing, as you see, there's a different component in there. But the idea that I want to show you, this is not just collaboration between those tech people, like data scientists and data engineer, but also the people coming from the business background. We also provide the low-code, no-code tools, make sure you can collaborate beyond the skill set as well. So in that case, I will shut up now, and I will hand it over to Sandipan to bring all the concept to life.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to show you a quick demo of SageMaker Unified Studio. All right. So yeah, SageMaker Unified Studio. We had to do it. We had to unify data and AI because we have been talking to customers and no one wants to work with data. Everyone wants to work with AI. Because data is a back-end boring thing, right? So, and it's never clean, it's never structured, it's never the way you want. It's never, everyone has different context about data. So the IT guy would have a different context than the business person who understands the data. So to run data projects to feed into AI to get the right insights, you have to go through these boring tasks. The intention of unifying AI and data with Unified Studio is to make that process easier. So I have been talking to some customers today and got some questions around who is this tool for. This tool is for builders who would want to build with data. Now, when we say builders, it could be a business person, right? Someone in finance who understands finance data would probably go and build on Unified Studio. Someone in IT, a data engineer who is in the IT team, would go and build, right? The interesting thing is that they would come together in common projects to deliver data products, right? And that's why we have a concept of projects. within Unified Studio. So I will start giving you a quick tour. This is not the console. This is not the AWS console. This is a demo tour that we created with the software. But I will also show you some things on the console. The reason I did not do the full demo in the console is because I did not have confidence on the Wi-Fi. So, but the Wi-Fi is working fine, so I can switch between them, okay? All right. So one of the interesting things with Unified Studio is there is this admin persona who will, at the background, maybe from IT, would set up some domains and stuff like that. I'm not covering that here because that's admin stuff. Again, I don't want to make it boring. But when they do it, when they set up a domain is created at the organization level. So in your company, you will have one domain, and then you can create smaller domain units. So sales could have one unit, HR, marketing, et cetera, or there can be any other logical team structure that you decide, right? When you create the domain, it creates a portal for users to interact with. And that portal is not embedded within the AWS console. So that means that none of your users would need to go and log into AWS console to access this. This is supported with single sign-on. So users can go and single sign-on into this portal. Right? So as an example, when Jillian logs in, she sees this interface, right? So this is the unified interface where we bring together data projects, ML projects, SQL analytics, et cetera, et cetera. How many of you did the workshop yesterday? We ran a workshop on Unified Studio. I know you guys did. OK. Only 3 people here. So for the rest of you, it will be new. For you guys, I know you have seen some of it, but I will give you more insight so that it's not, still you get some value out of it, OK? So if you look at the top menu, we have arranged the studio into 3 areas. The first one is Discover. Why is Discover important? Why is Discover important? Because when you start a data project, you'd want to go and discover the data that you need for your project, right? So there needs to be some sort of search functionality that you can go and search for, right? Where do you search? There needs to be a catalog. If you want to buy something on Amazon.com, you have to go to the product catalog in Amazon.com, right? Similarly, if there is a data product that you need to search for, if there's a data set you need to search for, there needs to be a catalog where you can search, and it shows you the data set. It shows you the quality of the data. It shows you the reviews of how good the data is. Can you trust on it? Can you actually use it in your project? It shows some descriptions and stuff like that. So this is where we have built that data catalog, and I will go later in the demo and show you how it looks like. And then you can see we have added generative AI. We had to add it because everyone is doing it. So we have got the chat playground where you can play with the generative AI models, but you can also build traditional ML models and other AI stuff that we have got in there. The second one is build, right? So this is where you get access to all the build tools. So whether it's a SQL query editor or a Jupyter notebook, workflows, a ton of machine learning and generative AI build tools, you get access to them from this menu. And then governance. So I talked about the organization of stuff. So your organization will have one master domain, then there will be domain units. It depends on how you organize yourself within the business. You can create them. You can associate accounts, so it doesn't need to be on top of one AWS account. You will have multiple AWS accounts in your organization. You can bring them together to feed data from different accounts. Then project profiles, blueprints, I'll explain them as I go through. Lydia did explain some of it when she was doing her part. Now, you can create a project from here. The interesting thing about projects is it gives you a logical, secured boundary, a sandbox-like environment for the project members to work on a data project. So if you start working on a data project, you create this project interface, and then you can define security of who are the members of these projects, what kind of access they should have on the data, which data set should be part of this project, and you can define that security boundary. There can be a project owner. So there are 2 types of roles in a project owner who is basically the admin for that project. They can add users, remove users. They can add data sets, remove data sets, et cetera, et cetera. And there are project contributors who go and contribute to that project. they will have access to certain tools to work with. Now, we have created 3 project profiles here. So it could be either a data analytics and AI/ML model development project, so where you will build an ML model, and then you will need access to data, and it will create all the infrastructure necessary, all the resources necessary for you to work on that project. And then we've got generative AI application development project, and then SQL analytics. And you will see the tooling is different. So for example, data analytics, AI/ML, you'll see we're giving access to Amazon EMR, AWS Glue, which is necessary for data processing and cleaning and structuring, et cetera. And the SageMaker and Lakehouse. Over there, you just get access to Redshift Serverless or Athena that works just for SQL analytics, right? So you get the appropriate tools for that particular project profile. And then once you go in there, then you can define some parameters for the project. You can give some names of what kind of databases you want to create in that project and stuff like that. So you see these are the blueprint parameters. So the beautiful thing about blueprints is when you start working on these projects, the backend infrastructure is created and deployed by these blueprints. So you don't need expertise in basically going and finding out how to deploy these things, right? How to configure an EMR server, how to deploy these kind of stuff in the infrastructure level. The blueprints are automatically created for you, and they get deployed. It creates the infrastructure, removes those boring admin tasks from your project, and you can quickly start on building with data. So once the project is created, so member can go and open the project. All right. Before we go to the queue stuff, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how the project looks like. So you can see the best thing we have got in the project is integration with version control tools like Git or GitHub, right? So once you start building your data products, you will need some sort of versioning tool. Different project members will collaborate on the same script. You need some sort of Git control on that so that you can version control and know at what stage of development it is. So we have got native integration. For today, we have got Git, GitHub, and 2 or 3 others, which I don't remember right now, but that's in the documentation. So then you have got access to, again, I will go through them, the data, the compute, and the members. So data is where you get access to your data catalog. It will come in the next page. I'll explain about compute and members later in the demo. Now, imagine you are a team member working in this project. Now you need access to certain data sets. So you're working on a sales data product, let's say sales performance or something like that. Now you need access to sales data, right? So you would go and need to find which data sets exist in the catalog to work with. One of the easiest way to do that is use Q and ask questions in natural language, like find me the data sets that contain sales data. So what it does is it goes and searches for all the data sets in the catalog that have got sales-related data, and it comes back with those data sets. And you can just click on that, and it takes you to a product description, for example. Like in Amazon, if you buy a shoe, you will see the description of the shoe, you will see reviews, et cetera. Similar concept here. So you see the sales data, you see some sort of business metadata. So this is where we provide the business context to the data product, right? So the business users who use it, they understand what this product is about, what are the columns present, and things like that. So let's go and explore this a bit. So I showed you the business metadata, and then if you look at the schema information, right? So usually in technical, like in your data sets when they're raw, you will see this kind of column names. But then we interpret them in a business context. So these are pretty straightforward, but there are others where account ID would mean something else to a bank employee than to a person who has an e-commerce account, right? Something like that. But it also provides description. And all of this information is automatically generated using LLMs. Then we give the data producers access to change them, which I will show later in the demo. Now, what you can also see is we provide data quality scores. Now, the data quality check process, the setting up of data quality rules and all of those things exist out of the unified studio experience today. And what I mean by that is that if you have to do data quality checks on your data, you can use AWS Glue functionality to check your data on when it is catalog. The rules will be run on top of the catalog to give you the catalog score. And that score will be displayed in the unified studio. So for a user or for a builder who goes and searches for the data product for the first time and finds the data product, they can actually see all of this information. So the business metadata, the business context of the column names, the data quality scores, and the lineage information, right? So data lineage, where does the data come from? How did it change throughout the journey? So it shows that kind of information. And that helps the user, the builder, to make a decision whether this data set can be a part of the project they are working on. And on the business metadata page, we also provide some of the technical details, like in terms of what is the data location, what is the size of data, what kind of data it is, and things like that. Now let's go to the query editor. Let's say we want to run some SQL queries on top of it, right? So if you want to run SQL queries, you can either run it using Athena or Redshift SQL query. We have the same query editor. You don't have to change query editors, but you can basically decide which dialect you want, because the SQL in Athena differs a bit than the SQL dialect in Redshift. So depending on what you're using, you can just select what you want to use to query. Now you see, we selected some results from one table, but what we're also making easier is to query using natural language, using Q. So rather than spending time in writing long SQL queries, you can just type a prompt in English, and then it will generate the SQL query for you. Or maybe the user's SQL is not that proficient. They can go and do this, and they can generate the SQL query quickly. And then they can, once they're satisfied with this query, they can actually add it to this query editor and then run the query. Right? So it makes things a lot faster for SQL users, because now you're not spending time in writing long queries, but you're actually using English language to generate the queries. If you know SQL, you can quickly go through it and see whether it's actually correct or not. If there are syntax errors, it will, if you run it, it will show the syntax errors, then you can just iterate and fix that. Then you can ask follow-on questions. So I did not go through the example questions here, but what it's doing is when you ask questions in one conversation, it remembers the context of the previous question that you asked and what kind of query it gave you, right? All right. Once you have done that, let's say you generated some SQL queries. Now you want to save it. You can save it to the project. It goes and gets saved in the Git repository. Then you can push it in the Git once once you finalize that query. So that helps other team members to go and discover the same query notebook if they wanted to. Then they can work on the same query script as well. Then for data engineers who would want to run Python or Spark, there is an open source capability called Jupyter Labs. How many of you are familiar with Jupyter Labs or use them? Okay, quite a few. So we provide the same experience in this studio. And as you can see, if you have used Jupyter Lab, you will know. So on the left-hand side, you've got all the files, part of this project. The thing about notebooks that I like is you can maintain the code and documentation together, right? So you have got documentation, the code cell, documentation cell, the code cell. It explains it easily, right? And what we're doing here is once the SQL user has created a table in sales data, so they research the sales data, they ran some queries, the end query actually generated a table. Now the data engineer goes and reads that table and runs some propensity models, does some cleaning of data, and the data engineer would create another enriched table, doing some feature engineering, and upload it to the same catalog. That means that within the project catalog, the SQL user, the data engineers are working on the same data set, but they're creating new data sets as per their job by cleaning data, doing some enrichment, feature engineering, and that gets in the same common project. Now, at this point, I need to switch to the console to show you some other stuff, which is really interesting with the Jupyter Notebook experience that we've got. Just a second. Only if I can find it. So I have to single sign in quickly. So this is the experience you got. So I'll just So this is me logging to the Unified Studio. I actually opened the Jupyter Lab before, but it timed out, so it's just connecting to the space again. So when you open the Jupyter Lab, you can create your own workspace in this Jupyter Lab. So it creates a workspace for you, and then you can configure the space in terms of adding compute and stuff like that. And that's what I'm going to explain, because that's important for you to understand what are the differentiators in this case. So the example that you saw in the demo, and this project is totally different. So don't think, this is a churn analysis project. What I want to show you is some of the features available in the notebook, because that's really interesting. One of the things that we have got here is in each cell, you can select what type of language you want to use or what type of script you want to use. In the same notebook, you can use a SQL script in a cell, and then you can use PySpark, you can use Python, so you can mix and match depending on what you're comfortable with, or you can just do a full PySpark script. And each of these language can be powered by different types of compute. So you can have a smaller compute for a Python script. You can have a larger compute for a large data set being processed in the same notebook, in the same Jupyter Lab environment, right? And this compute is part of this project. So remember I told you that when we create the blueprints, this type of compute, the infrastructure gets created, right? And you can select so the admin can select what gets created and what is disabled. So the admin has control. So if you create a project, if you're the administrator, you can assign resources that you just need, but you can also give access to the project admin to select that blueprint, who is probably not technically savvy or not an IT guy, right? They can use the blueprint to automatically deploy these things, right? And they have access to provision more compute from this page, from the compute menu. So they can just add compute and add an EMR serverless. So for example, I have added EMR serverless for this demo, this EMR serverless environment. You can see it's created and it's running right now. I just created while Lydia was presenting. I created this thing. This was something that I created earlier and it stopped. And for each of these things, you can do that. So for example, for data warehousing, if you're using Redshift, there can be a Redshift endpoint. And you can, if you're using machine learning, generative AI stuff, you can use Hyperpod clusters, MLflow, workflow. I did not create anything over there. But the project admin has got access to select what kind of compute they can create and give it to the project members to work on this project. The domain admin can also restrict what the project admin can provision, right? So the domain admin, who is the organization domain admin, can say these projects, these blueprints can only have these tools, and you can never provision compute bigger than that, right? So you can have that control at the organization level, but the project admins can also do it themselves by using blueprints. So you can see I talked about contributor and owner rights in the project. So that's how, from the members page, you can see who are the users who are member of this project and what kind of access they have got. Okay. Sorry, moving back to the Okay, something else I wanted to show here is in these code cells, you can actually use, so just a second, you can actually use generative AI utilities to either have you explain the code, optimize the code, or refactor the code. The benefit that I have realized with the code explanation is that I write code or generate some code. I will ask it to explain the code. When it explains the code, I'll review it, edit it, and put it in the documentation. Right? So I'm actually using generative AI to automatically generate documentation for the code that I'm writing. So it is easy for anyone in the project or someone else who joins the project later on to look into the document, see the explanation of what's going on in this notebook. Right? And Q helps do that faster. So I don't have the writer's block of going and thinking what to write for this document, right? So it's generated automatically. All right, let's get back to the analytics project. Now, remember we created a new table in the notebook that I showed you in this demo. That new table is in the project data catalog. Now what we can do is we can publish that table in the main catalog, right? So the Unified Studio catalog. So the way we do it is we go to these data sources. Again, you don't have to remember everything right now. I'm just showing you. We have got workshop instructions. If you want to try, you can try it later. I'll give you the resources. But we go, so when this project is created, it's created in this database. We go and do a run data source, and that it creates a data source that takes that table and then gives you the rights to publish it on the catalog. So once I've run it, it goes to the assets menu. By assets, we mean assets can be of any type. It can be a table. It can be a model, generative AI model. It can be an ML model that you have built. It can be a data product. It can be just one data set, right? So there are different asset types. This is the table that we created. It appears here now, right? And what we do here is once this new table is created and we create this asset for the catalog, remember the catalog can have business metadata. It can have column descriptions and column names, et cetera. We use LLMs to generate them. Once it is generated, we read through this, right? We make edits if required, and then we accept. So this generates the summary. Generates the descriptions, and once we are satisfied with the product catalog, we publish this asset. Once we publish this asset, it becomes available in the Unified Data Catalog. Sorry, Unified Studio Catalog. And what that means is that members or people in your organization can search that data product or data asset in the catalog, and they can look into the metadata information, like the business context, the column names. They still don't have access to the actual data, but they can see the metadata to decide whether that is the right data set for that project. So we create data products. Data products are bundles of different assets. So it could be 2 data sets and 1 AI model that runs together. It could be a bunch of data assets, like a bunch of data sets that together create some context, right? So that's how you package data products. So for example, in this data product, we are choosing the sales enrichment with weekly campaigns and product reviews data asset to create the product sales and reviews data product, right? So it has got 2 data assets in it. Now, once we publish it, it goes and publishes it to the catalog. Now, I'm switching project. Why I'm switching project? Because I'm taking another persona. So I was in a different project, and then a different persona comes, let's say a machine learning engineer. They will take the data product that we built in this project. They will subscribe to this data product from another project and work on the same data product. It's from a different team. Now imagine there are different ways of defining these projects, right? So you can have sales department with a sales project, right? Marketing department with a marketing project. And then they can share data between themselves. Or you can have a data engineering team, ML team, IT team, business team having different projects. It depends on how you design your organization. Over here in this example, we have created analysis project and machine learning project. So this is the machine learning project we are in. I'm a machine learning engineer. I need to build some propensity models on top of the sales and product reviews data. I go to the product catalog, I look for the product, I find the product, I'm satisfied with the metadata. We have skipped it in the demo. Like I open it, look at the summary, column names. I said, okay, this is something that I need access to. Because I don't have access to the data, it's just the metadata that I have access to, right? That's when I click subscribe. And I say, hey, I need access to this project. Put some reason here, like I require this access to work on this project, whatever, right? This request goes to the owner of the analysis project who built this product, right? Now in organizations, it can be a data steward role, a data governance officer, someone from the team who takes care of the data product, who knows the policies and who should have access or not. Now you see what we have done is we have switched back to the analytics team project just to show you how the subscription appears. So the ML engineer requested, someone in the analytics project can actually see the product sales and review subscription requests. So they can say, oh, okay, someone requested for subscription. They will view the request, and they will approve it. When they approve it, they can also choose, it doesn't show here, I don't know why, but on the console you'll see, they can also choose whether this person should have row-level security or column-level security defined. So they can define fine-grained access control on that particular product for that person, and then give them access or reject. But for the demo to continue, we have to accept it. So now we are back to the ML project. Now the ML engineer has got access to the project. They go to the Jupyter lab. They build some ML model on top of the data that they have got, right? So they prepare the data. We're not going to this code, obviously, right now. So they use XGBoost to do this thing, run some prediction models. And then they generate an output to create a marketing campaign. So they saw product reviews, they saw sales data, and they said, hey, we need to do some marketing because the sales is not good, right? And our product reviews are not at what we like. So we'll do some marketing for it. So they want to generate some marketing campaign. So what they did in this notebook is generated some propensity model, did some investigation, and then use generative AI to create some prompts so that they can go to the generative AI playground to generate some sort of marketing page with some images to do marketing, right? So they generated this prompt. They'll go to the chat playground, select a generative AI model, in this case, Anthropic Claude 3.5. Then they will paste the prompt generated in the notebook. And this prompt basically generates an HTML page so that they can put it on their website. It will generate, yeah. So this is generating the personalized content, then it will generate the HTML page. Okay? Yeah, so we can generate as many variations. It's generative AI, so you can just play with it. Then we go to the image, use Amazon Nova models to enter what was generated as prompt, and then generate some images, put them together in an HTML page, publish as marketing content, right? Okay, this is the first time we got to know that this is a serial company. But so once you put the prompt in here, that was generated, the context, now the image, and we have asked it, okay, generate me an HTML page that I can embed in my website, right, as a marketing material. So it generates the HTML code. Yep. And then we have uploaded all the HTML page and the images generated here in the project. So it's not only about the Python scripts and stuff that you develop, it's a project. You can upload any kind of file. And then you can test them here. So it kind of generates this HTML page with the images that you can publish to your website, right? So they will go and publish it without ever leaving SageMaker. So what is the, can you put back the slides, please? So the reason I showed this to you, right, is you have seen throughout this experience that data engineers, SQL users, ML engineers, or someone working with generative AI, they get all of this experience within the SageMaker Unified Studio. Right? Our vision is to bring the boring experience of doing data engineering and cleaning and all of those stuff together with doing the interesting stuff with AI, where you can see insights in the same project. While doing that, we make sure that the data is secure, it's within the project boundary. Data silos are not created because you can publish them in the catalog, which is the central catalog, where you can go and search, discover for data assets, or data products, or generative AI models, and you can work with them together. And that is our vision with Amazon SageMaker, bringing all of these things together. So SQL, generative AI, model development, data processing. What's coming? Streaming, search, business intelligence. So we will have QuickSight dashboards embedded within the same experience. You can create QuickSight dashboards for business intelligence. You will have streaming experience, et cetera. And this defines how cross-functional roles can work on data projects to deliver right outcomes for your company. All right. Yeah, so you get the idea, bringing everything together so that different roles can collaborate. There are too many things over here. The resources that you have got, this blog is really good if you want to understand how what I've talked about, how the governance work. We have got a bunch of videos from reInvent that you can watch to learn more. Have you got the workshop link here? There should be a workshop link, no? OK, if it doesn't exist, just search for SageMaker Lakehouse Workshop on Google. You'll find or Perplexity. You'll find the link, right? That's it, really. Thank you very much. I don't want to hold you anymore. Please provide us some feedback. Thanks.